Okay, it turns out this is a 3-part lecture which may be broken up into smaller videos as well. It's a while since I wrote this, at least a week. Okay, macronutrients, part 2. So we'll look at zinc, vitamin D and vitamin C in this one. So zinc. Zinc is involved in numerous aspects of cellular metabolism. It's required for the catalytic activity of about 100 enzymes and plays a role in immune function, protein synthesis, wound healing, DNA synthesis, cell division, and no doubt other things. Zinc also supports normal growth and development during pregnancy, childhood and adolescence, and is required for a proper sense of taste and smell. A daily intake of zinc is required to maintain the steady state, that is homeostasis, because the body has no specialized zinc storage system. So again, we can't store in our body. It's present as zinc ions, which are water soluble. So what do you think the best sources of zinc are? A little bit of think about that for a moment. Maybe pause the video. Okay, let's see what we're going to think about that. I've never eaten an oyster. Oysters contain more zinc per serving than any other food, but red meat and poultry provide the majority of zinc in the national diet. Other good food sources include beans, nuts, certain types of seafood such as crabs and lobster, whole grains, fortified breakfast cereals and dairy products. And corn and soya are good sources for vegetarians and vegans. It's worth thinking that up to a couple of hundred years ago, oysters were a cheap and abundant source of food for many British people. Population trends, both in terms of growth and migration of cities, along with overfishing and probably pollution as well, have changed things. There's some NIH information on zinc here, which is a bit thin on details. I beg your pardon, the NHS information on zinc is a bit thin on details, so I've included an NIH, which is an American resource, which is much better. But bear in mind the recommended daily amounts may be different to UK ones. And of course, as usual, I recommend any good nutrition textbook. Yeah, just a little aside here. Nutrition label can be said to be a little contradictory. The traffic light system is essentially based on indicating maximums that should be consumed of some of the macronutrients, such as salt or fat, for example. It doesn't include protein, of course. The detailed nutrition label is more focused on looking at how much your food contributes to the recommended daily intake of a range of macro and micronutrients. So it's maximums and minimums. Okay, well, have a look at a few vitamins. A chap with the best name ever, Casimir Funk, a Polish-born biochemist in 1912, proposed the vitamin with an E on the end hypothesis. That is the concept that deficiency diseases, for example beriberi, scurvy, pellagra and rickets, are caused by the absence of specific chemical substances in trace amounts in the diet. The proposal helped stimulate research in nutrition. Funk's investigation of the anti-beriberi factor revealed that it was an amine, that is a chemical with an NH2 group in it. He assumed that all similar substances are amines and named these substances vitamins with an E on the end, vital amines or life amines. Later investigators determined that only the anti-beri substance, thiamine or vitamin B1, is an amine, so the term vitamin was changed to vitamin. There's a good reference there if you want to read more about Casimir Funk. It's an amine group there. The NH2. Okay, vitamin D. Well, it's very much in the news, as we've already seen. Quite hard to find in food. One thing first, it is not made from sunshine. Sunshine provides the energy for a key part in what is a complex synthetic process in the body. Vitamin D, also referred to as calciferol, is a fat-soluble vitamin that is naturally present in a few foods. It's added to others and is available as a dietary supplement. It is also produced endogenously, that is within our bodies, when ultraviolet rays from sunlight strike the skin and provide the energy for a particular part of the vitamin D synthesis process. It's made from cholesterol. Cholesterol has a bad reputation, but is an essential nutrient involved in many processes, including the synthesis of vitamin D. Of the cholesterol we need, 80% is produced in our bodies, which brings up some interesting questions about low cholesterol diets. You can't have too much, of course. Over here are gallstones. These are small stones, usually made of cholesterol, that form in the gallbladder. In most cases, they don't cause any symptoms and don't need to be treated. Larger ones are possible and do cause serious pain. The scale here is in inches, and so these are quite spectacular. Okay, vitamin D synthesis is complex and beyond the scope of this module. Again, look at any good biochemistry and nutritional biochemistry textbook. This image links to a Science Friday discussion of the general issues. It's well worth having a look at. Obviously, two people sunning themselves there, so getting plenty of ultraviolet light. As we can see, it's quite a complex. The skin's involved, but also the liver, the kidneys, the parathyroid glands, the bones. It's produced in a complex biochemical process covering many parts of our bodies. Yeah, the sun doesn't always shine, of course. Glenthorpe Road on a non-sunny day. It's posted done by some students from a previous version of a module similar to this. If you click on the map, it'll take you to a YouTube video showing sunlight changes during the year. So we might want to redo again. It was done a while back. We should get the point if you look at how the amount of sunlight changes throughout the year. The images are taken from a Met Office resource. Why they're called actual and anomaly maps, I have no idea. But you can download maps of sunlight for particular months, for example, which is what I did when I produced this video here. So have a look at the video. I'll have to remember to include that in the playlist. Okay, so problems. A lack of vitamin D can lead to bone deformity such as rickets in children and bone pain caused by a condition called Osteomalacia in adults. We got a comparison there of normal anatomy and rickets. In rickets, the bones aren't strong enough to support the weight of the body. So we see fractures and we see the bones bending in ways which we've got some photographs of in a little while. Osteomalacia refers to a marked softening of the bones, often caused by severe vitamin D deficiency. And softened bones of children and young adults with osteomalacia can lead to bone injury and growth, especially weight-bearing bones of the legs. Osteomalacia in older adults can lead to fractures, presumably because of that higher body mass. This is distinguished from osteoporosis, which is a health condition that weakens bones, making them fragile and more likely to break. It develops slowly over several years and is only often diagnosed when a sudden fall or impact causes a bone to fracture. As mentioned earlier, losing bone is part of a normal process of aging, but some people lose more bone at a faster rate than normal. This can lead to osteoporosis and increased lead of broken bones. It mentions Los's zone fractures there, which are a form of stress fracture associated with osteomalacia. Lack of vitamin C, vitamin D and calcium and sunlight can lead to rickets. Condition that affects bone development in children, as we can see from that x-ray there. Causes bone pain, poor growth and soft weak bones, and can often lead to bone deformities. And again, in adults known as osteomalacia or soft bones. Rickets was rare until the 19th century migration to the cities. Prior to this, the vast majority of people spent a long time outdoors, eating relatively good sources of vitamin D, such as fish. Then people moved to cities, less sunlight, looked substantially less happy. Probably the diet probably wasn't as varied, with the consequence that rickets became a thing. There's a couple of photographs of a couple of children there with rickets. Until fairly recently, UK children were given vitamin D supplements in the form of fish oil, usually cod liver oil. This used to be given by spoon, for example, by children being taken to the town hall. Taken from meat, it tasted absolutely disgusting. And its encapsulation in gelatin was warmly received by the children. And there's a link there to some various other reading if you want. So it effectively prevented rickets from developing in the UK population. And this approach has been used around the world. Okay, a couple of definitions which are useful in understanding the obvious issues around vitamin D deficiency. Index disease and non-index disease. Symptoms such as rickets have short latencies, that is to say they appear quickly and are said to be the index disease symptoms. Non-index disease symptoms have a much longer latency period, that is they take much longer to appear and may be associated with suboptimal amounts of the relevant nutrient rather than deficiency as such. It's quite a key distinction here. So these are some of the consequences of suboptimal levels of vitamin D. They've been associated with a range of long-term health conditions, many of them associated with the autoimmune system, which is, again, one of the reasons why people are interested in this in the context of COVID-19. Note that the RNI of 10 micrograms per day is very much higher than the suboptimal amount of 10 nanograms. So a nanogram is 10 to the minus 9 grams, whereas a microgram is 10 to the minus 6 grams. So it's 3 orders of magnitude difference. For infants and younger people, we don't really have the data set in RNI. Instead, as a precaution, a safe intake of 8.5 to 10 micrograms per day has been set. See this BNF report for more information. Yeah, the main risk factors which can lead to so low serum vitamin D levels are inadequate sun exposure, which is linked to low ambient UV exposure, low vitamin D intake, and a range of physiological factors. So linked in this image here. There's probably little people can do if they live at high latitudes, but many other factors are modifiable by behaviour and supplementation, especially during winter. Okay, so here's a graph which appears in quite a lot of resources where people are talking about vitamin D. The blue bar, for example, this one in Northern Europe, shows a percentage of vitamin D deficiency in the general population, and the brown is that for pregnant women. Okay. As noted, high altitude locations with long dark winters are associated with low population vitamin D levels, as you might expect. Cultural reasons, such as covering up when outside, are important in some parts of the world, such as the Middle East. Notice the low incidence in South Africa. Lots of sun, and people don't necessarily cover their bodies up in the way that people do in other parts of the world. Here's a concept: vitamin D winter. Those winters in which UVB availability is too low to allow skin to synthesis of vitamin D is sometimes called a vitamin D winter. While being assumed to be largely absent from southern Europe, it can last as long as 7 months in higher latitudes and perhaps 6 months in the UK. Obviously depends on how long our particular winter is. It can be a while. And again, there's a link in the notes if you want to do more reading on this. Okay, today, does vitamin D combat COVID? This is a question in the news recently. In late December, the National Institute for Health and Care Excellence, NICE, in collaboration with Public Health England and the Scientific Advisory Committee on Nutrition, published an updated rapid review on recent studies on vitamin D and COVID-19. Their recommendations supported the current government advice revised in April 2020 during the first lockdown for everyone to take vitamin D supplements to maintain bone and muscle health during the autumn and winter months. However, they noted that sufficient evidence to support vitamin D supplementation with the aim of treating or preventing COVID-19 was still lacking, and the topic should be investigated further. And well, you're saying it is being investigated further. It's hardly surprising. We are only a year into the crisis, and the evidence is still developing. Still, the take-home message is that vitamin D supplementation is a good thing. It is recommended for many population groups. Still very much in the news, see this Lancet editorial. There was also a short debate in Parliament, which is well worth having a read of. Right, okay, I think we'll have a pause for this part of the video. We'll come back for vitamin C.